name of this section is Properties. It is 7th grade math 1.4 on page 38. And we're going to discuss some properties this morning, and we're going to concentrate on the distributive property. Two of the properties that we use in mathematics the most are the commutative and the associative properties of multiplication and addition. The commutative property says that we can add and multiply numbers in any order we want, but the associative property says that we can start with any two that we want, and we can group the numbers together and add them or multiply them. The commutative and associative properties do not apply to subtraction or division. They only are for addition and multiplication. Now, the one that we're going to talk today about is called the distributive property. In the old days, the distributive property was called the distributive property of multiplication with respect to addition. However, they have dropped that part of it and simply called it the distributive property. Distributive is D-I-S-T-R-I-B-U-T-I-V-E. You need to know how to spell that. The distributive property says this, very simply. It goes two ways. It says if we have a number, which I'll call A, times a quantity, that we can distribute, that's where it gets its name, distribute this value to both quantities, so that it is the same as taking AB plus AC. So we can distribute the A to the B and to the C, but it has to go to both of them, okay? It also says the opposite. If AB plus AC, if we have this, then it equals A, and you can pull the BC out. Okay, so these two properties, it goes both ways. Now, what does it mean for you? I'm going to show you first of all that it works, and then I'm going to show you how to rewrite things using the distributive property. We'll just take some numbers. We'll just take 5 times 2 plus 3. Now, normally you would use the order of operations, and you would do it in parentheses first. So you take 2 plus 3, and you get 5. So we had 5 times 5, and we get 25. But I'm going to show you that the distributive property works also, that I can distribute the 5 to both numbers. So I have 5 times 2 plus 5 times 3, and I get, this is 10 plus 15, and I get 25. So you can do it either way. Now, most students will say, why do we have to use the distributive property? Why can't we just do this? Later on in algebra, we're going to put variables in for the numbers, and so using the distributive property will help us to simplify. So it is necessary for our future. So we need to learn the distributive property. So the directions will say, use the distributive property to rewrite, the word is rewrite, each expression. And then it will say, then evaluate it. Okay? So we're going to use the distributive property to rewrite each expression, and we're going to evaluate it. So let's take, let's take this one. Number 1, 7 times 2 plus 4. Okay? So to do the first part, we don't just use order of operations. We use the distributive property to rewrite it. So we would take 7 times 2 plus 7 times 4. And this would be your first answer. Okay? And it's equal to it, so we can keep the equal sign. And then, to evaluate it, we would go 14 plus 28, which I believe is 1242. Is that correct? So your two answers look like that. So we would distribute it. I'll show you again another one. 5, and I'm going to move the number just for fun. I'm going to move the number to back. So let's go 6 plus 7 times 3, okay? And you'll notice that I move the number to the back of the quantity, but it works the same way. I distribute this way, okay? So I would go 6 times 3 plus 7 times 3. And the commutative and the associative property says that I can put the 3 in front or on both of these or not. So what I get is 18 plus 21, which I believe is 939. Make sure I get these right, 1242. Okay, so this is using the distributive property to rewrite the expression and then to solve for it. Okay, now I'm going to show you that it works. It also works for subtraction. If I have 5 times 7 minus 3. Now, just to do this in our head, 7 minus 3 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. So our answer should be 20. But to use the distributive property, I'm going to distribute it across, and I'm going to go 5 times 7 minus 5 times 3. Most students, the mistake is made that they don't distribute it to the second number. So this is 35 minus 15. We know that our answer is already 20. 35 minus 15 is 20. So you can see that it also works for subtraction, and that's different than the commutative and associative properties. Okay? All right. Now, I told you that it could go from here to here or here to here. So we can reverse the process. Let's say that I'm still using the same directions, use the distributive property, rewrite each expression, then evaluate. I'm still using the same directions, but I'm going to go 3 times 9 plus 3 times 8. Okay? Now I'm going to use the distributive property. Most people would say I'd use the distributive property backwards, but it goes frontward and backwards anyway, so it's not using it backwards. But you can see that both of these have a 3 in it. So what happens is I pull the 3 out, and I rewrite it as 9 plus 8. You see what I'm saying? The 3 came out of the product of 9, and the 3 came out the product of 8. And so this is rewriting using the distributive property. Okay? And so then I would go 3 times 17, which would be 21, I think 51. So there would be my 2. Okay? All right? I'm going to do another one of these. It works for subtraction also, so I can do 2 times 8 minus 2 times 5. Okay? You can see that the 2 is involved in both products. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out, leaving the 8 minus 5. And 8 minus 5 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. So, and I can double check it. I can check it by taking 16 minus 10 and 6. So, but this is my answers rewriting using the distributive property. Okay? All right. You don't have any questions on that? So I'm going to talk about then another couple properties that I mentioned earlier. We have the commutative property, and it's C-U-M-M-U-T-A-T-I-V-E. It's commutative. There's no N in it. Okay, it's the commutative property, and we have one for addition, and we have one for multiplication. Okay, and that's multiplication symbol with a circle around it. But the addition says if A plus B, I'm not going to write the if, A plus B equals B plus A, and the multiplication is A times B equals B times A. So what it's saying is, if I add numbers, for example, if I add 3 plus, well, let's do one that I can show you that it helps. Let's say that I had 7 plus 2.5 plus 9 plus 3.5. Okay? What this allows us to do is that I can move the numbers so that I can put numbers that I call compatible numbers together. So I would say 7 plus 9 plus 2.5 plus 3.5. Okay? And so I can put these two numbers together and these two numbers together. So now, before I complete this problem, I'm going to talk to you about the associative property, because I have to do it next. There is an associative property, and we also have it of addition, and we have it of multiplication. Okay? So remember, I'm looking to simplify this problem. All right? The associative property says that I can, if I have A plus B plus C, that's the same as A, and then I can add the B plus C first. Then this one, using the order of operations, I can add the A plus B first, then add it to C. And this one, I'm going to add the B plus C first and add it to A. And I get the same answer. Multiplication would be that I multiply A times B times C, or I can start with B times C. All right? Now, as you can see here, I'm at a spot here where I need to simplify. What the associative property is, I bring that and I use associative property. So I take 7 plus 9, add those two together, and then I take 2.5 plus 3.5 and add those together, and 16 plus 2 plus 3 is 5, and a half is 6. So I get 22. I'll say that again. I add these two together, then I add these two, 5 and 1/2 is 1, that's 6. 16 plus 6 is 22. Oftentimes when you see people that can multiply and add very quickly, they're using these properties. For example, let's say that I had this particular problem, all right? The directions will say evaluate mentally, okay? Now, most math teachers do not like you to do things mentally most of the time. But this, however, is very practical. So I'm on number 6. Let's take a look at this. 4 times 12 times 25. Okay? What I'm going to show you is I'm going to use the properties to show you how to simplify this very quickly, or quicker than we normally would. I call 4 and 25 compatible. Why? Because if I use the commutative properties and I put those two together, I can take 4 times 25, which is 100. I know that 4 quarters are in $1, so there's 100. And then I take 100 times 12, and you know I can just take the 12 and add 2 zeros to it. So I can do that mentally, okay? And what this allows us to do is using the commutative and the associative properties, I can rewrite something in my head and do it very quickly. All right? So let's talk about this. Do I have you doing the properties? Yes. This property was the commutative, and this is the way I write it. The commutative of addition. Excuse me, of multiplication. There's multiplication there. Okay? And this is the way I write it. I put commutative of multiplication. And then this one is the associative of multiplication, because I regroup these. So go from here to here to here to here. Okay? All right. I probably will not have you, I don't think I'll have you do the justifying expressions. If I was here, I might have you do them. But let's go ahead and try some from the assignment. Let's take a look at number 19. All right? Number 19. It is 15 times 8 times 2. And you can see that they already have the 8 times the 2 multiplied together. But 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 times 15 is tough to do in my head. But if I rearrange and regroup, I would go 15 times 2 times 8. And here's why. 15 times 2 is 30, okay? I can do that quickly in my head, or somewhat, and then I can take 30 times 8, and I get 240, okay? So, on the first set of directions, when it says use the distributive property to rewrite the expression, I do want you to show your work. On this one, you can do it mentally, but I do want to show your work like this, so that if there is a problem, we can find out where you're struggling at. Okay? So let's do one more. Let's do an addition one. Let's do 16. We have 85 plus 46 plus 15. So what I'm looking for is, remember, I'm looking for compatible numbers. Compatible numbers are two numbers that add together or multiply together, divide or whatever, and we can do it quickly. As you can see, that 85 and 15 are compatible. How do I know that? Well, 5 plus 5 is 10. So I know that I'm going to get some sort of number with a 0 at the end, which is compatible. So I'm going to rewrite this as 85 plus 15. I'm going to regroup those numbers and add the 46. Now, once again, I'm not asking you to justify your, I know the directions say so, but I'm not asking you to justify your answers. Just move it and show your work so that if there's a problem, we can see where you made a mistake. So 85 plus that is, I believe, 100 plus 46. And so what I get is 146. Okay? So your assignment will be page 40, numbers 9 through 27. Make sure that you rewrite the expression using the distributive property, and then you give the answer. That's a mistake a lot of students don't make. And you do that on 9 through 12, and then you also do it from 23 to 27. So make sure you do those things. All right?